India will define a successful visit beyond the sort of feelers and the atmospherics and the dinner and the photo ops? What will India look to achieve? I think Ambassador Shankar has listed some of the specifics. What would you add to those?
Would further add that the fact that the ISET was signed, the Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies, and which will also include artificial intelligence, plus drone technology that is likely. I mean, at the moment they're going to give us drones, but I think even the drone technology that has been talk of sharing that with us, and our startups in both countries. I think that is the future. Startup ecosystem and co-location of these startups, and for them to work together to come up with innovations, and not just doing basic collaboration, but coming up with new innovations which are of not only for India and the US, which are important, but also for the world. Coming up with absolutely new innovative solutions, I think, is the future. And that on that as well, already agreements are there, but I think this visit is going to push that that collaboration, that co-location between what is the future technologies that are coming and which are taking over the world, and how to regulate the use of AI, etc. We know ChatGPT, if it is allowed to go sort of unregulated, then I mean, we can be sure that the world is in trouble. So that needs to be regulated, and we really need to. I think that is also going to be another thing, that on new technologies we will work together. We will have to create regulations, and of course, as Ambassador has mentioned, Ambassador Shankar, that this visit is going to be about to some degree of transfer of technology and changing and bringing the supply chains, part of the supply chains into India, which is an important element of our whole initiative of Atmanirbharta and our aim or our ambition to be a certain emerging power.
Right. The Prime Minister is, as we speak, sort of arriving at the venue that you see on your screen. It is Yoga Day, and he is going to be leading that sort of what should I call it? Yoga conclave or collection of people doing yoga. So we're going to see that up on our screen. I guess in a few moments from now, I don't see the Prime Minister in those pictures, but I guess he's reached the venue, and we should be able to. Those are live pictures from the United Nations headquarters. We should be expecting the Prime Minister to step on that stage, that venue, very soon. Chirayu, soft power, yoga, the thought leaders that the Prime Minister met with, an interesting eclectic mix from from the man who coined the phrase "black swan" to Elon Musk, right? How did you see that moment, especially given the very polarized debate around India in some of the sort of public intellectual circles in the United States of America?
Yes, Burka, thanks for the last sentence, because before I exactly come to the question, I would like to congratulate for a nicely written column, and it was really an interesting read.
Thank you.
And I think, yeah, I think you raise a very important point, that India would never be an ally. And you ended there, and you ended on a very positive, informative note there, just to drive the point home. But there's a second part of the debate, as you said, in the American intellectual circles, that India would not be an ally like Japan or South Korea maybe, and that's the reason we should be cautious in our investment in India. And I think that is something hitting of a straw man as I see it, because I have not seen since the early 2000s any American grand strategic document, or for that matter, any president saying that my South Asian policy is a failure because I was not able to bring India closer as an ally. Without being an ally, the comfort that we are sharing right now, Ambassador recently mentioned of the 4 foundational agreements, the kind of tech transfer, the kind of body language, the kind of things that we work on, the breadth of the relationship. I mean, why do you always need a treaty alliance document? And if India is not willing to sign the document, or if India is a little bit uncomfortable with the word alliance, so what? You are still managing the work together. Of course, there is a room for disagreement, and compared to it, and you rightly pointed out my own research, so compared to Japan or South Korea, your room for disagreement be a little bigger. But so what? You're still, there is an unprecedented level of comfort. You are working together. You are taking the challenges head on. So that is, I think, this old early Cold War era mindset that only you are friends or only you can work with someone who has signed a formal treaty alliances is, I think,
Absolutely.
there is some change required in the Beltway discourse there. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect, you talk about the eclectic mix of people that Prime Minister met yesterday in New York. Now, look, what I see is that what Prime Minister has taken upon himself is a task that, apart from being the Prime Minister, he looks himself as the CEO or the brand ambassador of the India story, and therefore he wants to sell the India story to a set of academics. He wants to sell it to the set of business people and say that, look, what I have made changes is, in the regulatory framework in Gandhinagar, come open your campuses in India, or for that matter, come invest in India. I'm doing reforms, etc. So I think, and those developments also help him politically here at home. So I think it's a Janus phase strategy where you sell India story abroad, reap the benefits at home, and I think if you ask me, from this perspective, he's doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah, and I think you make the important point that to not be an ally doesn't mean that it's not a relationship worth investing in, and that those old models of you are with us or you're against us, those Bushism, the era of the Bushism is over. I want to bring in Michael, and then I give the last word maybe to Seema. Michael, any red flags that you see in the relationship? Can we unmute Michael? Michael, you're muted at your end.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yes.
I don't. Yeah. At this point in time, I don't see any red flags. I mean, there's some trade tensions that got worse during the Trump administration, but clearly there's a desire on both sides to work through those. And there was a recent strategic trade dialogue that was established for that very purpose. The Russia factor is not as much of a tension point as it had been right after the invasion began. The administration, I think, certainly does not agree with India's decision not to take a strong stand against Russia, but it's accepted that, and it's playing a longer game with India and trying to make the argument that over the longer term, Russia will cease to be a helpful security partner to India, and the U.S. is trying to position itself as a country that, with its allies, can fill the gap and try to start supplying India with the types of material and supplies that it's received from Russia in the past. So I don't think that's a red flag anymore. We've already discussed that the values issue is not going to be a problem for the relationship. So I think that, quite frankly, at this point in time, the relationship is probably at its strongest point. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat things, but it's in a very good place. There's a fair amount of trust and goodwill. At this point in time, I don't envision any major red flags. Obviously, one never knows what could come up 5, 10, 20 years down the road. But at this point in time, things are in a very good place. I should also say that issues like Pakistan, which, for example,
I was just going to say that we've just done an hour of India-US without once mentioning the word Pakistan, and and that makes for an interesting change, because at least, Michael, before I give the last word to Seema or anyone else who wants to come in on this, there was a time when Indian prime ministers used to take India's anxiety about terrorism, for example, to the United States of America. The first time Barack Obama, in a joint statement, for example, I think it was Manmohan Singh, then spoke about the Lashkar-e-Taiba. That was, Pakistan was still part of the framework of the conversation. It doesn't happen now. There is no reference to Pakistan. We didn't make a reference in this whole conversation. That's a shift.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I fully agree with you. And I think that since U.S. forces left Afghanistan, the relationship with Pakistan here, it's still there. I mean, there's still formally an alliance with Pakistan, but there's not really much to that relationship. And quite frankly, it's not a major point of discussion in official circles in Washington either. And that could only benefit the U.S.-India relationship more broadly.
All right, Seema, last word to you. As the yoga sort of conclave starts, the real meat of this visit will, of course, be what happens at the White House meetings. What should we be looking out for?
So a couple of points I want to make. There's a new overall policy framework designed by the two national security advisors, from which a lot of initiatives are coming. So my only concern is about delivery, because especially in Washington, this visit has been sort of, for a lack of a better word, hyped so much that if it falls short on delivery, then it would be a matter of concern.